Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker, tried to bring a vote on the infrastructure bill to the House floor, or she was thinking about it this week, did not, because she realized she didn't have the votes to get it done, as a lot of centrist Democrats in the House wanted her to. For context, for those of y'all who don't remember, and maybe David can explain this better than me, this was always an in tandem vote. So it's like $1 trillion for infrastructure. There's less than that, right?
Yeah.
Because there's the new spending is
$550 billion in new spending over 8 years. And then the rest of it, that is actually it. Because,
I know. Sometimes in government,
it's a very small percentage of the federal budget. And existing spending is something called the Surface Transportation Bill, which is routine highway spending that goes out every year. Anyway, you pay for it through the gas tax. And that was attached to this so that they could make it sound bigger. So they can make it sound like
something they already usually pass.
Yeah, it's something we do routinely every year and have done for decades.
Right. So the idea was progressives in the House were saying, look, we'll pass the infrastructure bill, but not until we pass this reconciliation bill that has $3.5 trillion. We're talking money for home care and home care workers, free community college, a climate core, all the things, extended child tax credits, all the things, like a huge transformative budget. And they're basically leveraging their vote on the infrastructure bill and saying, all right, well, let's make sure these go together because we've been burned before. We know what happens when we sign off on one piecemeal thing. Right. You fuck us in the end and we never vote on the bigger thing. So that seemed to have been working. And then this week, it seems like Nancy Pelosi broke with that agreement.
Yeah.
But still didn't bring this vote to the floor. And now progressives are like, hell yeah, we flexed a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's going on? What is going on now? What is your assessment of what progressives are doing?
I mean, the whole reason that these two things were linked together is sort of a lack of general trust among the factions of the party and a lack of trust in the institution itself. It's almost like that scene in Reservoir Dogs where everyone has a gun pointed at everyone else.
Yeah.
Like that's what's going on in Congress right now. The moderates don't trust the progressives. The progressives don't trust the they're not moderates, but anyway, you get my point. And so the centrists wanted the infrastructure bill to pass because it was done in a bipartisan way and they could tout it at home and you get to do ribbon cutting and right. it's and you can say I was a problem and I was a problem solver. I did this with Republican support.
Right. But mostly the big scissors.
Mostly the big scissors.
Mostly the scissors. The progressives wanted the larger Build Back Better Act because it's really the entire Democratic platform. And it includes a lot of things that progressive members have been working on for 20 years, 30 years, a really, really long time to get things like the child tax credit extension, to get things like paid leave, which we're the only country other than Papua New Guinea that doesn't have a paid leave program, paid family and medical leave in the United States, and so many others. Actually, kind of the weakness of its bill is also its strength because it's so comprehensive you can't even explain it to anybody, and so it makes it very hard to describe.
Our literal last chance to avert global climate apocalypse.
Yes, I mean it would be the most it would be the most intensive climate bill that Congress has ever passed. It would have the most impact. So yes, many months ago, both Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer put together this 2-track strategy, and they said, okay, we will do the bipartisan bill through the regular order of the Senate, where we can get 60 votes for that, we feel, and we will do that bill that way. Mm-hmm. And then we will do this $3.5 trillion Build Back Better Act through the budget reconciliation process. And it's not important to explain what that is. All you have to know is that it only needs 50 votes in the Senate.
Right. It circumvents the filibuster.
It gets around the filibuster, which is a ridiculous thing where we have a supermajority for any legislation. It definitely should go away. But we have it, and because of the Manchin cinematic universe, we have it. And so this is a way to do that. And the idea was that the Senate would pass both of those bills first, because House progressives, as you said, did not trust that that they could pass one bill and then the moderates in the Senate, the Manchins and the Cinemas would sign off on the other portion of it.
Even getting to that point feels like a pretty big win for progressives.
It was, and this was the road everyone was going down,
right?
Until a group of House Democrats led by Josh Gottheimer, who is a member from North Jersey, who put together a gang of, I think, 9 members. And what they actually did was force the vote, is what they did. They said, we want a vote on the infrastructure bill on a date certain.
Right.
And they said this as a consequence of moving to the reconciliation bill. So they had their leverage and they said, we want this vote on September 27th. And because there was no other way to advance the budget resolution, which is the prelude to the reconciliation bill, Nancy Pelosi said, okay. And so we had this deadline that was staring us in the face, September 27th. And we started working with The Intercept and the Daily Poster on feeling out progressives. Okay, September 27th is coming. It doesn't look like the Build Back Better Act is going to be done by September 27th. So are you willing to vote no on the infrastructure bill if that Build Back Better Act isn't done and passed through the Senate? And we got more and more members saying, yes, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to vote no. Now, the backstory here is that the Congressional Progressive Caucus has historically been a fairly ineffectual body.
Yeah.
It's been around since 1991, started by Bernie Sanders when he was in the House. But that was at a time when there were very few members, like 6, I think, originally. There are now 96 members of the Progressive Caucus. And for many, many years, it just wasn't very organized. Progressive Caucus, it was kind of like a resume builder. You would just put that on your list. Yes, I'm a member of the Progressive Caucus. Well, what does that mean? Nothing.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to vote for anything in a certain way.
Dues.
I don't have to pay dues. I don't have to do anything. For a while, they had co-chairs, and that didn't make it twice as organized. It made it half as organized, kind of. So really, this started to turn around when Pramila Jayapal entered Congress. And she entered Congress in 2016. After 2018, she became co-chair of the Progressive Caucus. And in this session of Congress, she is now the sole chair. And she came to it with more of an organizer mindset that, we have a large block, almost half of the entire Democratic caucus in the House.
Yeah.
And we need to use our power. We need to actually wield power here. And if there's something that's going in a direction we don't like, we're going to speak up and we're going to say, look, we're not going to go ahead and move forward with this. And they tried this in a few instances in 2019 and 2020. But of course, the Senate was in control of Mitch McConnell. And so there wasn't really anything that finished to come out of that. But this time around, they were able to say, look, we are not voting for this bill. And we had a whip count of up to, I believe at the end was 29 or 30 members who said, we're not going to do this. And Nancy Pelosi only has a margin of 3 votes in the House. It's a very thin margin. And there weren't enough Republicans to offset that who would vote for this bipartisan bill, even though it was supposed to be bipartisan. So as the date kept coming closer and closer, first Pelosi delayed it from the 27th to the 30th. And then she delayed it another day and said, oh, it's the same legislative day, like she was bending time and saying October 1st is actually still September 30th.
Well, when the rooster crows at the midnight, it means, I don't know, I feel like she's got some campy way of explaining that.
Do the Baltimore.
I think she got one of the Doctor Strange rings.
Actually, I think there's my grandchildren. I'm sorry.
There you go.
I can't
so anyway, and then they finally ditched it. And Biden came down to the Congress on Friday and said, look, we're not going to get this done until we get a deal on the Build Back Better Act, essentially aligning himself with what progressives were saying, which was the deal all along.
Biden was the one to do this.
Yes. And this was the deal all along. He was just affirming his original deal, which was a 2-track process.
Right.
A lot of this is being pitched as progressives blocked the bill. Progressives actually adhered to the process and the deal that was made originally.
Yeah.
Why did
it was the Gottheimer gang that blocked the bill. And this is the problem with forcing the vote when you don't have the votes. So they forced the vote, but they didn't have the votes. And so what happened was they got steamrolled. And now everybody is in the room talking. trying to negotiate terms to get to a bill. I don't know that it's going to be 3.5 trillion. Obviously we got to deal with Manchin, we got to deal with Sinema, but it's not going to be zero. And that's the road we were headed down when we were going to pass this bipartisan bill first, and then have no guarantees on whether we were going to get a reconciliation bill at all.
Right.
So
you're saying Biden actually did come down and say, no, we're not going to skirt around the agreement that we made to pass this two-pronged legislation. Right. And Zach was just asking who these 9 people are. Are they like, these guys are the people who are like, I don't want to lower pharma costs.
This is the interesting thing, because you would think that they would be 9 members in the most swing districts in America that need Republican votes to win their reelections, and so they have to sort of straddle both sides of the fence. That's not true.
What was their incentive then?
Is in a safe seat. These are corporate Democrats. These are corporate Democrats that take corporate money and are working on behalf of corporate America to block the tax increases in
I don't know. I don't think someone would do that. Why I don't think someone would take money like that.
I know their hearts, and I feel like their hearts are just in the center, and that's like, they have moderate hearts.
So I mean, that's what this is about. This is not about kind of the people in tough districts, the frontline members. That includes people like Katie Porter,
right,
who is in a tough district in Orange County, and she's one of the leadership of the Progressive Caucus, and she said, look, frontline members need this bill because there are tangible benefits in Build Back Better for these very swing districts, things like reducing the cost of childcare, reducing the cost of prescription drugs, which Democrats have been running on for like 15 years, reducing housing costs. So this is not about frontline members. It's about corporate Democrats who are acting on behalf of corporate America.
Yeah. And I want to go to...
I just think that's so cool.
America, bro.
And yet, but I mean, what you can say that is cool is that progressives held the line. They promoted the great band Toto, hold the line. And they said, look, we're going to take a stand here, and we're going to honor the deal that was already struck.
Right.
And they did it. And it doesn't mean they're going to win every single thing that they want moving forward, but they're in a much better position, and they're taken seriously within the Democratic caucus and among the media. And that is different. I mean, everyone assumes that progressives will fold at some point.
Right.
And here was a moment where they didn't. And what they got in exchange for that is some respect.
Hell yeah.
And it would have been so easy for Biden to go the other way too. Like it would have just been simpler. So I do think there's some credit there for
and, I mean, Pelosi, I think at some level, Pelosi did, she set up this vote and everything, but she never actually whipped the vote. She never tried to get progressives to change their mind, really. And I think she was almost presenting this to the holdouts to say, look, you're playing a losing hand. You don't have the votes. And so now we're going to have to compromise.
But she can also bend time.
Yes, she actually did.
She definitely can.
By different rules than the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, okay, I want to go to the leader, or one of the leaders of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, who, as David says, have really coalesced into a force that actually does stuff rather than sort of a symbolic, I am part of the progressives. Like, no. And then we strategically wield our power around different issues and legislation. So here's Pramila Jayapal explaining whether or not this is going to get done, the bill's going to get passed, and then what the final number could be. And it's a little long, so I may scrub.
Get to yes so that both bills can get passed and on the president's desk for a signature.
Absolutely. We absolutely will. I am totally confident of that. We're going to pass both bills. And I am just really proud of the Progressive Caucus this last week because we got the 2 bills back on track. The bipartisan infrastructure bill obviously was done. It was ready. But by saying we're not going to leave behind women and families who need childcare and paid leave. We're not leaving behind the climate crisis and real action on that. We're not leaving behind housing that is desperately needed across the country. And we're not leaving behind immigrants. We actually were able to say, let's get them both done together. 85% of the president's agenda is in the Build Back Better Act. And 5 months ago, Jonathan, he came from the White House to the Capitol, laid the case out to us, and we can't wait to get both bills to his desk.
So that's exactly what David was explaining about, this was always the plan the entire time. And what I love is that, for progressives who are constantly told like, oh, you're not Democrat enough. And, Congressional Progressive Caucus started by an independent, started by Bernie Sanders, that Pramila Jayapal, Representative Jayapal, has been going on like talk show after talk show after talk show, so many spots, and just being like, we're supporting our president. This is what the president wants. This is the president's agenda. And it's like so delicious, and
it's good framing. And a lot of this agenda came out of what they called the Unity Task Force meetings between Biden and Sanders representatives during the campaign. And they came up with this Democratic platform. And largely what's in the Build Back Better Act is the Democratic platform. So there's a lot of Sanders in here. And that's why he has been probably among many the most enthusiastic for the bill, and also the most supportive of what the Progressive Caucus was doing.
Right.
During a caucus meeting, we reported this, and The Intercept reported this. During a caucus meeting 2 days before, I believe it was last Tuesday, Sanders relayed a message saying, you need to hold the line here, and you need to not vote for this bill, or else we're not getting anything. I mean, he laid it out pretty clearly.
Yeah.
And so in many ways, the strategy is very much taken up by Bernie as well.
What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.